by the time we invited the film, Oprah came on as an executive producer.
Amazing.
She had just seen the film when it played at Sundance, and she loved it. Tyler Perry also came on as an executive producer, and they all came to Toronto. Oprah had never been to Toronto. Tyler had never been to Toronto for the festival. We had Mary J. Blige, who did the song for the film.
So cool. Yeah.
We had Mariah. All of these people are coming onto stage at Roy Thomson Hall.
Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of Table 6. We're here today with Cameron Bailey, the CEO of the Toronto International Film Festival. This year, TIFF turns the big 5-0. And to mark this milestone, Cameron has curated the TIFF Stories in 50 films, the films that have defined TIFF over the past 50 years. And if you're lucky enough to be in Toronto this summer, you can see those films at the TIFF Lightbox all summer long. Cameron, welcome to Table 6. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm good.
Awesome. Great to have you here today. So when it comes to the 50 films that you've selected for this summer's marquee series, the TIFF Story in 50 films, we saw a social media post saying that you were ready for a fight.
I am. Fight me.
Yeah.
Come on. Are you ready?
What did you mean by that?
I mean, when you make a list, you ask anybody,
Yeah.
Top 5 movies, their favorite pop songs, top 5 rappers of all time, you're asking for a fight, right? And that's part of the fun of making a list is that it's going to be personal, it's going to be something that reflects who you are in that minute, but everybody's going to have different opinions, and that's what makes a great conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, you did a great job.
Thank you.
It features everything from global breakthroughs, Canadian icons. You've got documentaries, animated films, a bit of a mix of everything, which is, I know, part of your TIFF motto. But how did you comb through 5 decades of, your books there? I know you had some help from your previous programmers, but how did you approach this task of picking the top 50?
It was literally film by film, page by page. We every year publish a catalog, a program book for that year's festival. I went back to the first one from 1976, which was pretty thin and smaller, and worked my way through 49 of those, looking at every film that we programmed. And I started and I did this over my Christmas break, so that's how I spend my holidays.
Wow.
But I found, I would say, maybe about 300 films initially that I thought were defining for TIFF, for what was then the Festival of Festivals and then the Toronto International Film Festival over 5 decades. And I was looking for films that really helped advance us as a festival in terms of our international reputation, and also where we were able to advance the career of that film. So, there's some obvious ones from the beginning, films like The Big Chill, which made its world premiere with us, and Princess Bride, Shawshank Redemption, Slumdog Millionaire. I think everybody knows, these are films that went on to become iconic, and they launched in Toronto with a Toronto audience. But there's lots of other places you can go, right? There was a time when we were at the vanguard of bringing international cinema from Asia, for instance, to North America. There was a time when, you couldn't find Hong Kong action movies, and you couldn't find Japanese anime so easily. And we brought a lot of those movies to Toronto for the first time, to North America for the first time.
Right.
So I came up with what I thought was a pretty good list, but even that number I had to bring down to about 100. We sent that out to a lot of my colleagues, past and present programmers and leaders of the film festival. And I said, we have 100 here. Have a look at this. Give us your thoughts. We want to bring this down to 50. And they came back to me with about another 600 films. So then I had another piece of work to do.
You need another Christmas vacation to get
I
this
know.
in.
Well, by that point, we're into January, February.
Yeah.
But I had to bring that down to 50 in total. And I did want it to reflect the full range of what we do. As you mentioned, documentary films from all over the world, and a real range. Emerging filmmakers, legendary filmmakers. Steven Spielberg has The Fabelmans on the list, but we also have filmmakers who were unknown at the time. So that range was important, and it was a tough job because we had to say no. I mean, I had to say no to a lot of films that I knew were important and people would want to see on the list, but had to be 50.
Cutthroat Cameron.
That's part of the gig.
Cutthroat Cameron. Canadian. That's your new name. Yeah. How important, especially in today's climate, that we're choosing Canadian titles or Canadian directors? How did that factor into your decision?
That was easy, and I have to say I did most of this work before the inauguration south of the border, so that really was not a factor. Yeah. But Canadian films have been a part of TIFF's history since the very beginning. We had people leading the festival in programming back then, Piers Handling and Peter Harcourt and many others, who were experts in Canadian cinema. They studied it as scholars. And so very early days, we were bringing in films by Denis Arcand, for instance, and then this generation that came out of Toronto in the 80s and 90s, Adam Egoyan and Patricia Rozema, Don McKellar, Clement Virgo, lots of other filmmakers like that. And so often they would show their very first films at their hometown festival, which was always great to do. And then, of course, some incredible films from Quebec. Denis Villeneuve's first films showed at our festival. So we already had a great body of work from Canadian cinema, and it just made sense to really reflect that in the list.
Yeah, I saw just recently that Sarah Polley is going to be there, and that's really exciting. She's one of my favorites.
Yeah, her film Away From Her is on the list. It's one of my favorites. Her first feature, just a beautiful, beautiful love story. She was quite young when she made it, and she made it about an older couple. But Sarah is wise beyond her years. She always has been, and I think it's a film that really stands up.
Absolutely. What would you say about the list that speaks to TIFF's future? Is there any kind of insight that we're gaining there as to where you're going?
That's interesting. So I think one of the most recent, if not the most recent film on the list is a film by Hayao Miyazaki called The Boy and the Heron. And that is one of those examples of the real artistry of Japanese animation. He's a legend. He's somebody that I think when we first started showing his films and when he first started, he was a bit of a niche filmmaker. But now there's Miyazaki stuff all over the place. If you just type his name into the internet, you will find all kinds. You can go on forever. So we were very lucky to have the international premiere of that film, meaning the film had played nowhere outside of Japan before we showed it in Roy Thomson Hall on opening night a couple of years ago. And that made the list because, first of all, I think he's just a master filmmaker, one of the great artists in cinema. He has a completely original vision, which he expressed through largely hand-drawn and hand-painted animation, if you can believe that.
Wow.
And it's a great work of art, and I wanted that to be on the list. And I think the reason I think that's a part of TIFF's future is because animation has become, in a way, I wouldn't say animation has grown up, but the audiences for animation have really grown up.
Right.
On the night that we had the international premiere of The Boy and the Heron, Guillermo del Toro, the great Mexican filmmaker, was our guest, and he got on stage at Roy Thomson Hall in Toronto and said, animation is cinema, animation is art. It's not just for kids. In fact, this movie is not at all for kids, right? It's in the art form similar to great works of imagination. And in fact, it's probably too much for little kids to even take on. But so animation has grown up. We're going to see a lot more of that in the future. Audiences all over the world, I think, are much more sophisticated than they used to be about animation. So that's a good example of where we're going to go. But there's lots of filmmakers who, we are still discovering. There's a guy named Will Oldroyd who made a film called Lady Macbeth, which was Florence Pugh's first leading role. She's fantastic, ferocious in that movie, if you haven't seen it. And that filmmaker, William Oldroyd, I think is somebody who also represents the future of cinema.
Awesome. My last thing, and I'll pass it over to Dana. I'm hogging the mic here.
No, go for it.
How do you trust yourself when you are curating or programming something a little different?
Yeah.
Did you said kind of you're ready for a fight, so you sometimes are leaning into a bit of controversial titles,
Sometimes I'm asking for a fight. I will give you a couple of examples. Lately, now that I'm in this role as the CEO at TIFF, I'm programming mostly just the gala films, so in the films that play in Roy Thomson Hall.
Right.
And many years ago, I was at the Sundance Film Festival and I saw a film called Precious by Lee Daniels. And really powerful film, debut of Gabourey Sidibe, but incredible cast. Mariah Carey's in it and Lenny Kravitz and others as well. And I was in the audience at his world premiere. Loved the film. I was there for the Q&A when Lee Daniels got up to answer questions from the audience. During the Q&A, he got a phone call and he answered the phone. And on the phone was Oprah Winfrey.
No way.
And so he's sharing this with the audience. He said, Oprah's on the phone.
Oh my God.
And by the time we invited the film, Oprah came on as an executive producer. She had just seen the film when it played at Sundance, and she loved it. Tyler Perry also came on as an executive producer. And they all came to Toronto. Oprah had never been to Toronto. Tyler had never been to Toronto for the festival. We had Mary J. Blige, who did the song for the film.
So cool. Yeah.
We had Mariah. All of these people are coming onto stage at Roy Thomson Hall to see Precious. And if you have seen Precious, that is a tough movie.
That's heavy.
Yeah.
It's about painful stuff, and it doesn't hold back. And, you know, this is our fanciest audience, right? So they had to be a little bit prepared for it. But honestly, I think the Oprah effect really did the trick, because we were all so excited.
Yeah.
I invited my mom because it was a big deal. So that's a case where, the film itself is challenging. But you think if you present it in the right frame, in the right circumstances, you can bring an audience towards it. Then another time, more recently, Claire Denis, great French filmmaker who I'm a big fan of, she'd made a film that was a kind of a sci-fi feature. And it starred the great French actor Juliette Binoche, but also Robert Pattinson. And I don't think had ever worked with American stars on that kind of level. And of course, he's got his own following, which I think will follow him for the rest of his life.
Absolutely.
But the movie is wild and quite aggressive in some ways, and has a certain scene in about the middle of the film, which is a kind of a sex scene, which involves just Juliette Binoche and, I would say, a device. Okay. That's all I'm going to say. And
tell us more.
Yeah, I truly can't, but you should see it.
Yeah, and I will.
And I knew that, again, our fanciest audience, who might be a little bit taken aback by that scene and some of the content of the film, but you had our Pats. You had the excitement of having these two big stars, and it was a world premiere as well. And I think, given that opportunity, that's where you get to challenge your audiences more. When you give them a little bit of something that they know and love, right, a beloved star, then you can actually take them a little further.
Yeah, and trust your audience.
Yes,
we've been very good at that at TIFF. So I think you never know what's happening behind those closed doors at that audience set.
Well, so you spoke to a little bit about this just now with some of the, I guess, ingredients to what makes a really great film. Like, what criteria is met to sort of determine, out of all these films, which one's going to be an opening night film?
That's a tough one. Opening night film has to do a lot of different things. First of all, you want it to be a great movie, a great experience for the audience, something that really takes them on a ride, a journey. You want there to be some kind of, excitement in the room about who's there. So whether that's, we've had all kinds of stars on opening night. We've also had films that really reflect Canadian history. We opened with Passchendaele a few years ago, which was very much about the First World War heroes from Canada. We had Mounties that night, I think, on the red carpet. So you want some in-person excitement. You want a movie that tells a great story, and you want people to leave thinking, "I can't wait to see more movies at the festival." Right. So
That's
all of those things. Yeah, exactly. And it's a wide range of people. Sometimes in opening night theaters at the festival, we may have people who go out to see one or two movies all year. Right. So it's kind of a big deal. They get dressed up, and they want it to deliver for them, and I want their appetite to be whetted to see even more movies. So that's part of what we're trying to do.
Got it. Yeah, I think everyone always looks forward to this time of year. It's sort of, for us in this part of the downtown, like what we consider, the final wrap up of summertime in Toronto. We look forward to the festival. And over the many years that this being the 50th edition of TIFF this year, we have seen the festival grow to the size that it is. We've got Festival Street, lots of other programming. Can you talk a bit about what we can expect for this year's film festival and all the excitement that is around going beyond the theaters and the actual films?
Festival Street is something that we started when we moved from Yorkville, which was really the hub of the festival for many years, to downtown to King Street, closer to TIFF Lightbox. We wanted to really energize that neighborhood by closing down the street, and we are grateful to the City of Toronto and the Toronto Transit Commission for letting us do that for 4 days for the last many years.
Yeah.
To bring people onto the street. And so we've got lots of our partners who've got activations going on. There's a real vibe. Even if you don't have a ticket to a film or you just want to go and see what's going on, that's what people do.
You feel part of it.
Yeah, exactly. And hundreds of thousands of people do that every year. But then also you never know what you're going to see.
Yeah.
Many years ago, one of the first years of Festival Street, we had this great programmer for the street activities. His name is Nobu Edelman, who's part of Choir, who do these music events all over the world now. But he wasn't doing that at that degree then. And he found this young musician in Regent Park, whose name is Mustafa the Poet, who was a teenager at that time. And he came and he performed on Festival Street, which was just beautiful. Now he's this big star. He does, fashion shoots all over the world. He's got great releases, and he's a massive, important Canadian musician. But back then he was just a teenager from Regent Park. And we wanted to bring that kind of vibe onto the street as well. And we try to do that every year.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I think I just get excited about going down to Festival Street and just being in the mix of all the busyness. And so whether you're
vibe.
Ace Hotel or the Ritz or Shangri-La, just having a drink, or you're actually going to see a film, it's just an exciting time of year. This year's a big one where you are getting a star for Canada's Walk of Fame.
That's right.
What do you think that accolade means to you and to TIFF?
When you walk down King Street, where the stars on Canada's Walk of Fame are actually installed, and you see everybody who's there, Canada's greatest athletes and entertainers and artists, it's a remarkable company to be in. So that means a lot. We have been trying to contribute to the culture of the country for 50 years, and I think it's a recognition of that, recognition of the fact that it's become a kind of an event and a brand, if you want to call it that, that's known widely within the film world and brings a lot of, I think, respect and recognition back home to us as well. So if it's for that, and if that is what gets us into that company, then we're really grateful.
Yeah, well deserved.
Awesome. What does that mean to you to kind of have solidified Toronto on the global stage with TIFF?
It's hard to say exactly, but I know that for me and for a lot of the people who've worked at TIFF over the years, thinking globally just always made sense.
Yeah.
The three founders of the festival were three guys who were really curious about the world. They went to the Cannes Film Festival every year, and they would hang out in their Speedos on the beach. And I've never done that. And I don't think I ever will.
Look that up.
You can look it up all you want. You will not see a picture of me in a Speedo. But they enjoyed the good life at Cannes, and they wanted to bring some of it back, but to make it Toronto.
Right.
So what they did from the very beginning, this is going back to 1976 in the first year. At the time, the word was multiculturalism. Toronto's being transformed by the waves of immigration from different parts of the world and just Europe. And they wanted that to be part of the spirit of the festival. They wanted to bring the world to Toronto. We were one of the first international film festivals to show new Iranian cinema, new Latin American cinema, new Soviet cinema. And that's always been a part of who we are. So the way that we get a global reputation is by actually bringing global cinema to Toronto every single year.
Wow. Well done.
Yeah, that's great.
We're going to move into a little palate cleanser here called Quick Bites.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Loafers in the summer. Socks? No socks?
No socks.
Aside from present day, what's the best decade of filmmaking? The 80s, 90s, or 2000s?
That's all? You're not going further back than that? 1940s?
You can choose any decade.
Oh, yeah. What's your
80s, 90s, or 2000s? That's the choice? Actually, 90s.
Oh.
Yeah, I think because 1999 is still one of the very best years ever in cinema. Just look up the movies that were made in 1999 and you'll see. So I'm going to go with 90s.
Okay. Okay, you can only sit in either the front row or the back row of a movie theater for
Front
the
row.
rest of your... Okay.
You got it.
That's easy.
So pick a fictional character to run the festival for a day. You've got Miranda Priestley from The Devil Wears Prada. Ferris Bueller.
I think she ran the festival back in the day, actually.
Some might say. Ferris Bueller or Ted Lasso.
Oh. interesting, but I think it's got to be Ted Lasso.
Oh,
Because Ted Lasso
really?
of those three has the most heart. And in the
Okay.
end, that's kind of what you need.
We love
You
Ted
need a little
Lasso.
Miranda, but more Ted Lasso.
Yeah, good selection.
I think I know the answer to this one, but your go-to Christmas movie, Die Hard or National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation?
Die Hard.
Yeah, that was an
Come
easy
on.
one. Any Cameron fan knows that.
However, I will also say Die Hard with the chaser of Elf.
Oh, I love Elf. One of my
That's
favorites.
what you want.
Spaghetti with the maple syrup.
Yeah,
and-
we've actually done that at my house.
I gotta try that this
It's
year.
actually not tasty at all.
Okay, favorite concession snack.
All right, this is a little left field, but if you go to a movie in South Korea, what you want is dried squid
Oh,
with your
Never
movie.
would have guessed that.
wow.
Yes, try it. And you can get that in
I was gonna
Toronto
say, can
as
I
well.
find dry squid in Toronto?
You can find it in Toronto,
I'll
absolutely.
do that and watch your movie at home.
Okay.
Yes.
Sneak it into a
It's
TIFF
tasty,
film.
addictive.
Awesome. And lastly, you're trapped in a film universe for 24 hours. You choose The Shire from Lord of the Rings, a Wes Anderson world, or Gotham City.
Oh, that's interesting. I don't love any of those worlds, honestly. But, oh man, like I would like to be trapped in the Matrix.
Okay, oh, that's a good one.
But
Okay,
I would-
you can choose
Can I
your
choose
own.
that?
It's called
Okay.
Cameron's Choice,
Okay,
so
all right.
you can
Matrix
choose your
it is
own.
then.
Yeah.
Good choices.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, red pill or blue pill?
We're not talking politics here, are we? So no, I'm not going to answer that one
Okay,
at all.
fair enough. Cameron, you've been with the film festival for 35 years, right?
It's amazing.
Tell us about the early days of TIFF and sort of what it was when you first joined to what it's become now.
Mm.
And then sort of when did you sort of see it turning into the TIFF that we know today?
So when you ask that question, what I'm immediately reminded of, like the picture comes into my head, is something we used to call the hospitality suite, which no longer exists, but it was just like a hotel ballroom that we would decide would be the place that everybody would gather end of the night, beginning of the night, whenever you were done what you were doing. Open bar, hang out. Back then, people smoked indoors.
Wow.
Does anybody remember that?
No,
I wasn't
awful.
born yet.
Right. So imagine you're entering like a big smoky room at the Park Hyatt, or, you know, we had it in different hotels over the years. And you might run into this amazing filmmaker from France, or this, Matt Dillon might be sitting in the corner having a drink and a cigarette or whatever. And you would just start conversations, and everybody was there. You didn't know who you would run into. The festival was small enough and intimate enough that we could still do that. And also it was a different era.
Yeah.
So that to me is what really is emblematic of the old days of the festival, that hospitality suite. Some days we would call it the hostility suite, honestly. But it was, because you never know like what kind of beef would pop up there. But that was really so much fun most nights. And then, we began to evolve in different stages. So there was the year that Roger Ebert first called this like the top film festival in North America when he was writing for the Chicago newspaper. That was a big deal. And suddenly the next year, a bunch of other people came. There's years where it feels like there's a real discovery that comes out of the festival. Then there's a rise of awards season, right? So back then, even when, back in the 80s and 90s, I started in 1990 at TIFF, but back in the early days, there wasn't the kind of massive machine to generate Oscar wins and Oscar nominations. There certainly is now. And we are a part of that machine, right? Because films often launch in Toronto, and, whether it's American Beauty or Slumdog or, so many others, there is a kind of a media campaign that launches out of that. And we began to see that bit by bit once people knew that you could discover movies that would be hugely popular coming out of Toronto. Everybody wanted to get that same magic. And that's really due to the Toronto audience. There's some kind of unique magic about the mix of people, the enthusiasm for movies, the complete lack of snobbery, which you find at some other film festivals, and just a genuine enthusiasm and passion for that movie experience. Doesn't really exist in the same way at a lot of other festivals, but we have it here in Toronto. We're lucky, and the whole world wants a little piece of that.
Yeah. Yeah, one of my favorite moments in of TIFF is when you go to see these movies, you don't really know what you're getting into. I like to just choose some random ones. Maybe I'll pick a few based on who I like love to see. But the experience of being in a theater, like if you're in Roy Thompson Hall and people are applauding and laughing together and crying together, it's just such a unique, special experience. So you mentioned a little bit about Oscar buzz. The People's Choice Award has been a predictor of a lot of movies that have gone on to win Oscars. Why do you think that is? Do you think we just have really good taste, or
Of course we do.
Obviously. Yes. I think it's that combination of factors. Other film festivals, it's largely an industry audience or a press core that's really generating opinion and buzz. That certainly happens at the Cannes Film Festival, which just took place in France. But in Toronto, it's regular moviegoers. It's people who don't have a kind of professional stake in what they like. They just like what they like. And they vote on that basis, and they respond in the room on that basis. And you can never tell what exactly is going to generate that response. Sometimes it could be a film from Lebanon, as we've had before with Nadine Labaki's film. But sometimes it's a big Hollywood blockbuster. And it can be everything in between, but it's the genuine emotional response that does it. And it's a fact that I think Oscar voters, even though they are professionals and they do work in the industry, most of the voters for the Oscars are also just genuine movie lovers as well. So that's the connection, I think.
Yeah. Good. Well, I think one thing that's really exciting about this summer is lots of anyone who's in Toronto can actually see some of those People's Choice Awards winning movies at the outdoor movie screenings that's going to be happening in partnership with the Toronto Downtown West Business Improvement Area. Do you want to talk a little bit about what that will be like for the months of July and August?
Yeah, I mean, we're counting on good weather.
Yes.
It's almost June and it doesn't feel like it yet.
I know.
But
The summer forecast came out today.
Did
it's
it?
supposed
And?
to be hotter and drier than last
Thank you.
season. Thank
Okay.
goodness.
Longer.
Excellent.
Yes.
Okay, good. So imagine just like a beautiful summer night, and once the sun goes down, you'll be able to sit out, big screen, listen to and watch one of your favorite classic movies. Some of the People's Choice Award winners are really movies that people go back to over and over and over again. I mean, Princess Bride is one that I will always.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Because it keeps popping up.
Yeah.
Well, just because it was one of the earliest big successes that we had. Like a lot of the films that popped up and really became successful at the festival in the early years, it was a movie that people didn't really know what to make of. It didn't follow like one genre. Like, what is it when you first watch that movie, right? But then you want to watch it again and again and again. And you want to show your kids or your cousins or whatever it is. And it becomes one of those movies that people just fall in love with. And that first happened in Toronto. So that's why it's a big deal for us. I mean, I have a son who's now 16, but from the time he was like maybe 6, I was showing him that movie and we watched it in our house a lot. And I know a lot of families do. A lot of people just kind of curl up and watch Princess Bride for comfort and they know all the lines. So it's one of those things that really just became so beloved by film lovers, and that's what we want to share this summer.
Awesome. And that's at David Pico Square
That's right.
So it's Wednesdays at sunset.
at 9:30. Yeah.
Should we get there a little earlier?
Sure.
Yeah.
Get your place.
I think there's some
get
fun.
your-
Can we get a good spot?
Yeah,
Yeah.
good spot. I think there's some fun programming that's going to be ahead of the movies as well.
Yeah,
so.
July 9th for 6 Wednesdays.
Excellent.
I
Bring some
can't-
dried squid.
I was just going to say,
Oh,
I can't promise the dried squid concession.
I'll pick some up. Yeah, exactly.
And just to kind of, before we wrap up, one other topic we wanted to get into was TIFF is just so much more than a festival and kind of the changing ways that people are consuming content these days and consuming film, especially among, younger generations. How do you adapt to that? What's TIFF doing to kind of maintain that audience and really adapt to the fact that people are watching things on their screen this way?
Devices, yeah.
So we learned how to do both drive-ins and a streaming service when the pandemic happened. So that was how we got through 2020 and 2021's festivals. But really the way that for many, many years, decades really, that we've done our best to keep current is by listening to young people. And we've got a great program called Next Wave, TIFF Next Wave, where we bring young film lovers, like really passionate people, the people with really intense letterboxd accounts, into our world. They meet others who are like them. They're high school age, so they may be like the top film person in their high school,
Right.
and then they realize, oh, there's other people who actually are as into it as I am. We've had incredible people come out of that program, including Iman Vellani, who went on to be the star of the Ms. Marvel series on Disney, and so it's really a place to bring young people who are passionate about movies together, and they're as passionate about series as movies or content on their phone. They're not really distinguishing in the same way, but what they love is just what screen storytelling can do.
Right.
And when we bring those people together, we hear a lot from them about what they're most into, and we learn from that as well. So it works for us, it works for them, and that's been one of the main ways that we've tried our very best to stay current.
Awesome. And I know you have a partnership with Mubi as well.
We do,
Yes.
yeah. Mubi's on fire right now. And if you don't know this film company, you really should get to know them. They started as a kind of art house streaming service, kind of a alternative Netflix, I guess, but they're now, doing a big push into distributing movies theatrically as well. They had The Substance last year, which was our
so
opening
good.
night midnight film. That movie is wild as well. So they're picking
even
up
know
great
what to
movies. Yeah. Just recommend it to your dearest friends.
And then never go to sleep.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Before we have a little surprise for you, one more love letter.
Yeah, well, we always ask our guests this one question at the end. If you were to write a love letter to Toronto, what would it say?
I love your beef patties.
Oh, that is the shortest love letter we've ever had on.
Is there any city in the world that's got beef patties like Toronto?
Honestly,
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
No.
I think we take the cake on that too.
And you know what I especially like? Because I lived close to Alwyn's up in North York now.
Oh, yeah.
I can walk to Alwyn's, which is great. They've got great patties. But
Yeah.
I would also say the Subway beef patties are a particular pleasure.
Yeah.
Because you walk down in the Subway, you don't think you can get anything good to eat, but you can.
Yeah.
You know?
No, Toronto's really good for a variety of things, including a variety of hot potties.
Yes.
Well, Cameron,
Oh my God.
Wanted
look at this.
to
What?
say happy birthday
Oh my God.
to TIFF.
That's so
on
sweet.
its
Thank you.
50th edition. So
It's
happy
beautiful.
birthday.
Thank you.
Yes.
I love
50th.
this. Thank you. Can I touch this?
Yeah, you
Can I have a little
Absolutely.
swipe
And then
right
you
now?
can make a wish and blow out your candles. Wish something good for the festival.
Okay. For all of us.
For all of us.
Yay. Awesome.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much,
great.
Cameron, for being
Thanks,
on this
Cameron.
episode of Table 6.
Thank you. Really
was
enjoyed
awesome.
it. Thank you.
And good luck with the festival.
Thank you. Hope to see you there.
I will.
All right.